I'm crying and not saying much, but just in tears. And my husband looks over at me and he says, look, he says, I'm sorry. You're going to be very angry at me. He says, you know what? He says, unless an airplane ticket falls out of the sky, he said, we're not going to Colombia. We're not going to Valledupar to get these kids. I'm having lunch with my mom and my sister for my mom's birthday. It's April 2nd, I believe. And I get a phone call. And it's the adoption agency. And they say, we have 2 children. We have a boy and a girl. And I'm so excited. I call my husband on the phone and I say, we have kids. And he's like, we have kids. I'm like, we have kids. We're going through the process. And the next thing we find out is where they are. And the agency says, oh, well, they're in Cesar. And we're like, well, where's Cesar? We thought we were going to Bogota, Cali, Medellin, Cartagena, some of the bigger cities. Well, my husband is really good at anything that he does research on, everything. So he's doing research and he's doing research, and all he can find was all of these things about the FARC and the military. And my husband's a little panicked at this point, and he's pretty nervous about going to this Valledupar. He says, look, he says, I'm sorry. You're going to be very angry at me, but I cannot risk my life and your life for 2 children that I don't even know. He said, I can't do it. My husband had been trying to get in touch with the U.S. Embassy, and the embassy was not responding, and so I became frustrated, and so I decided that I was gonna call myself. So I get on the phone, and I finally get the lady on the phone that he's been trying to connect with, and she's like, well, let me check some things. And so she checked up and she looked at Valledupar and she said, I don't see anything on the radar with them, but what about the warnings? And she said, I can't tell you that you can go there. I'm not allowed to say that. But the same warnings that you're looking at, we give the same warnings to people who go to Paris. Oh, okay. As time went on, little things like that became a little more clear and a little more clear. The paperwork came through for the adoption, and I had to go back and sign off. There are 2 things that happen, and the judge signs off on the papers, but then there's someone called the procurador, and he also has to sign off on the papers, and he has a choice. He can either sign the paper or not. So all the way to the airport, the man that's taking me there says, don't plan on the procurador signing it. That never happens. And we signed the adoption paperwork, and this whole time, you know, I'm like praying and I'm praying and I'm like, God, I know you can move mountains, and I know he's not supposed to be able to sign, but please let him sign this paperwork today. So after the signing of the adoption paper, we go and we have a soda with the attorney and our guide, and then she leaves, and she says, meet me after dinner back at my office. So during this interim, she has requested a meeting with the procurador to try to convince him to sign the papers, and he has a choice. He can either sign the paper or not. I was stressed and overwhelmed. I was just ready to lay everything down, and I can't do this anymore, you know. And I just asked God to take over, and I gave it to him at that point in time. And it's time now to go back to Miss Dolly's office. And so I get there, and she's looking at me, and I look at her and I said, did he sign? And she says, yes, he signed. I'm in tears and excited, and she's in tears and excited, and so we were able to get the passports, and we were able to fly home with the kids. The adoption process taught me and changed me in a way that not to be fearful, not to be afraid. Before, I was probably a little more afraid and listening more of the fear that might have been speaking a little more loudly just in life in general. So with the adoption process, I believe it was losing that and drowning that out a little bit more, going more away from that and a little more towards listening and letting guide me in my life. My name is Wendy, and I am changed.